My friends, let me tell you something I learned many years ago. Breaking your consistency doesn't make you a failure. It simply makes you human. We all have good intentions. We all start strong. And then life happens. A busy week, a late night, a small distraction that grows into a bigger one. Before you know it, the habit is gone, and you're standing at the edge of another beginning, telling yourself, I guess I'll start over on Monday. But here's the truth. You don't need another Monday. You don't need another grand beginning. What you need is a better understanding of what to do when the rhythm breaks, because it will break. You see, consistency is not built by perfect days. It's built by honest days. Days when you say, I slipped, but I'm still on the path. Days when you choose to return instead of restart. The real problem is not the fall, it's the confusion that follows it. Most people fall off their routine, and then they abandon the entire idea. They think a broken streak means a broken future. But let me assure you, your potential doesn't disappear because you missed a day. Your dream doesn't vanish because you lost momentum. Your progress doesn't evaporate because your schedule got messy. No. What matters is how you rise from the interruption. What matters is how you respond when your consistency breaks. So today, let's spend some time together talking about that very thing. How to respond wisely when the rhythm stops. How to recover your consistency the way a leader does. How to get back on track without guilt, without shame, and without starting from scratch again and again. Because consistency is not a straight line. It's a leadership skill. And the real leadership, the leadership that changes your life, begins right after a fall. By the time we finish this conversation, you'll understand why people break consistency, how to rebuild it, and how to make sure you never lose your momentum for long again. For the next few minutes, let's walk through the truth. You don't need a new beginning. You need a new understanding. Now, my friends, let's get to the heart of it. Why do people fall off? Why is it that we start with fire in our eyes, but somewhere along the way, the flame begins to flicker? Most people think inconsistency happens because they're weak or lazy or somehow not cut out for success. But that's not true. In fact, inconsistency is usually not a character problem, it's an awareness problem. It happens quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, long before the habit breaks. Let me explain how it works. Jim Rohn used to say, everything affects everything, and consistency breaks the same way a little neglect here, a few excuses there, a small compromise today that becomes a larger compromise tomorrow. It starts when there's no strong philosophy holding your actions together. Because if your philosophy is weak, your habits will be temporary. You can only keep a routine as strong as the reason behind it. And without a reason, discipline evaporates like morning mist. Another reason consistency slips is simple. Most people rely on emotion instead of structure. They take action when they feel good, when the motivation is high, when the weather is right, when life is calm. But consistency is not built in calm seasons, it's built in chaotic ones. If your habits only work when life is perfect, you'll never build anything that lasts. And sometimes the environment gets in the way. You're trying to rise, but your surroundings keep pulling you back down. You can't grow roses in a garden full of weeds. You must manage your environment, or the environment will manage you. Remember, you can't rise above the people and places you allow to influence you. But here's a big one. Lack of measurement. You can't manage what you don't measure. If you're not tracking your progress, even in the smallest way, you'll slide off track without even noticing. Consistency breaks silently when you're not paying attention. And finally, let me give you something important. Consistency breaks because we expect perfection. The moment we miss a day, we declare the whole plan ruined. And that, my friends, is the tragedy. The disappointment of a slip becomes the excuse to stop altogether. But I want you to hear this. Falling off is normal. Staying off is optional. Everyone falls. The great difference between winners and quitters is not that winners never fall, it's that they know how to get back up quickly and wisely. In just a moment, we're going to talk about how to make that shift. How to stop seeing a broken day as a broken future. How to respond the way a leader responds. But first we must learn the proper reframe. Your inconsistency is not the end, it's the teacher. Now, my friends, Let me offer you a new way of looking at this whole idea of inconsistency. Most people believe that the moment they miss a day, they have to start all over again. They throw away the calendar, rip up the plan, and wait for the next Monday, the next month, or the next wave of motivation to begin again. But that's not true leadership. That's not personal development. And that certainly isn't what Jim Rohn taught. Let me give you the reframe, and if you grasp this, it might change your entire relationship with discipline. You don't need to begin again. You need to return. There is a big difference. You see, when you think you need to start over, you erase all the progress you've made. You talk to yourself as if the previous days, weeks, or months didn't count. But they did. Every action you took, every step you completed, every small discipline you practiced, it all mattered. Consistency is a journey, not a streak. And journeys are not destroyed by one wrong turn. Think of a ship sailing across the ocean. If the captain veers 1 degree off course, he doesn't turn the ship around, sail back to the harbor, and start the voyage from zero. No, he makes a small adjustment. He returns to the path. The goal remains the same. The journey continues. Only the steering changes. That's the reframe. You didn't fail, you drifted. You didn't lose everything, you lost your position. You didn't erase your growth, you paused it. You are not starting from zero, you are starting with experience. My friends, that's a powerful advantage. Jim Rohn used to say, it's not what happens that determines your future. It's what you do about what happens. A broken streak is not a broken destiny. A missed day isn't a missed life. What matters is your response. And the response of a true leader is simple. You return. You return to the habit. You return to the path. You return to the standard. You return to the promise you made to yourself. And the moment you return immediately, without drama, without guilt, consistency begins again. Not from the bottom, but from a wiser, more experienced version of you. Because here's the great secret. Each time you return, you get stronger. Your discipline gets stronger. Your character gets stronger. Your commitment gets stronger. Consistency isn't the art of never falling. Consistency is the art of always returning. And when you understand that, inconsistency no longer scares you. It becomes part of the journey. It becomes the classroom. It becomes the teacher. And in a moment, we're going to walk through the first step of return, the power of honest reflection. My friends, once you understand that you don't need to start over, you only need to return, the next step becomes absolutely essential. And it's a step most people avoid. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting, but it is powerful. It is transformational. And it is the very foundation of the Rohn reset. It begins with the mirror. Jim Rohn used to say, if you want things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better. But you cannot change what you refuse to see. You cannot improve what you pretend doesn't exist. And you cannot lead yourself if you aren't willing to tell yourself the truth. So let me ask you a simple question, one that only you can answer. Why did your consistency break? Not in theory, not in general, not according to someone else. Why you? Now, the point here is not guilt. It's not blame. It's not self-punishment. No, that's how people stay stuck. The purpose of this step is clarity, awareness, understanding, because awareness is the beginning of leadership. And honest awareness is the beginning of transformation. When consistency breaks, people usually offer two kinds of explanations, reasons and excuses. And they sound the same, but they are not the same. A reason is factual. A reason is real. A reason is, my child was sick, or I was traveling, or I had an unexpected crisis. Those are reasons. They don't diminish your character. They don't destroy your routine. They simply explain your interruption. An excuse, however, is something else entirely. An excuse is comfortable. An excuse is convenient. An excuse is the story we tell ourselves to feel better about not keeping a promise. And excuses are dangerous because they sound reasonable, yet they steal your future quietly, one day at a time. So the Rohn reset begins with separating the two. You ask yourself, did I drift because life demanded it? Or did I drift because comfort invited me? Was it truly out of my hands? Or did I simply hand my discipline over? Let me give you a simple practice Jim Rohn taught. Write down the truth. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, just the truth. When you write the truth, three things happen. You take responsibility without shame. Responsibility is not punishment, it is empowerment. It means you are in control again. You see the pattern. Most people break consistency for the same reason every time. They just never stop long enough to notice. You regain direction. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. And here's the beautiful part. Once you become honest with yourself, the pressure disappears. Guilt dissolves. Shame loses its power. Because honesty restores leadership, it restores agency, it restores that inner voice that says, I'm capable, I'm responsible, and I'm ready to return. Jim Rohn would say, you cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself. And this right here is the moment you begin to change yourself, not by force, not by fear, but by clarity. Look in the mirror, tell the truth, no judgment, no excuses. This is where the return begins. And once the truth is clear, you're ready for the next major shift, the rebuilding of your motive. Because the reason you fell is not nearly as important as the reason you'll rise. My friends, once the truth is clear, once you've looked in the mirror and acknowledged what really happened, now we move to the next great question in the Rohn reset. What is your reason? Because before you rebuild the routine, before you try to regain your momentum, before you set ambitious goals or strict schedules, you must rebuild your motive. The reason comes before the routine. Always. Jim Rohn would often say, when the promise is clear, the price is easy. What does that mean? It means this: you can endure almost any discipline when you're deeply connected to why it matters. A weak motive cannot carry a strong goal. A small reason cannot sustain a big dream. And if your motive is unclear, your habit will always fall apart the moment life gets difficult. Let me give you the truth that most people never hear. You don't struggle with consistency because the habit is hard. You struggle because the reason is blurry. You started your routine with excitement, not clarity. You started with emotion, not intention. And emotion is a wonderful way to begin, but it is a terrible way to continue. So let's rebuild the motive the way Jim Rohn taught it. There are 3 levels of motivation, and most people only operate on the first 2. Level 1, external motivation, the weakest. This is pressure from the outside, deadlines, expectations, accountability partners, New Year's resolutions, the fear of disappointing someone. External motivation helps you start, but it cannot help you endure. The moment the pressure disappears, the habit disappears too. Level 2, emotional motivation temporary. This is excitement, inspiration, motivation from a speech, a podcast, a book. It feels good, it feels strong, it feels unstoppable until the next morning when life doesn't match the emotion. Emotion is fuel for the spark, but it cannot run the engine. Level 3, identity level motivation, the strongest. This is when the motivation is tied to who you want to become, not the task, not the habit, not the outcome, but the identity. When the discipline becomes part of your character, consistency becomes natural. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. So here's the question Jim Rohn would ask you if he were standing here today. Who must you become to live the life you want? A disciplined person? A reliable person? A healthier person? A more capable person? A person who keeps promises to themselves? Because once you decide who you must become, the habit is no longer a burden, it's an expression of identity. The habit becomes proof of who you are. Let me show you how to rebuild your motive with 3 simple tools, the same tools Rohn himself used. 1, the why statement. Write down clearly why this habit matters. What grows, what improves, what changes. The mind needs purpose, not pressure. 2, the benefit list. List everything your life gains by staying consistent. Energy, confidence, respect, opportunity, progress. A long list creates strong motivation. 3, the pain list. List the cost of staying inconsistent. Lost years, lost health, lost opportunity, lost potential. Jim Rohn said we change our lives for one of 2 reasons, inspiration or desperation. Better to choose the first, but keep the second close enough to remind you. And my friends, here is the miracle of rebuilding your motive. When the reason becomes strong enough, discipline becomes natural. You don't have to push yourself. Your vision pulls you. You don't have to fight for consistency. Your identity demands it. You don't have to rely on emotion. Your purpose sustains you. So let me ask you again, what is your reason? Because once the reason is clear, we're ready for the next great step, the practical, powerful 7-step Rohn reset that teaches you how to return stronger than ever. Now that your motive is rebuilt, now that your reason is clear, your identity is rising, and the mirror has done its work, it's time, my friends, for the heart of this entire lesson, the part that brings everything together, the part that Jim Rohn himself would have loved, because he believed in systems, he believed in structure, he believed that success is predictable when your daily actions are aligned with your intention. This is the Rohn reset, a 7-step system to recover your consistency every time it breaks. Not once, not sometimes, but every single. And if you follow this, you won't fear inconsistency anymore. You'll know exactly what to do. You'll become unshakable. You'll return with clarity instead of guilt, direction instead of confusion, and strength instead of shame. Let's begin. Step 1, review. Look back with purpose, not pain. The first step is simple. Look at what happened. Not to punish yourself, not to criticize yourself, but to understand the pattern. Jim Rohn would say, don't let a week go by without looking back to see how you're doing. Ask yourself, what broke the routine? What distracted me? What changed in my schedule, my energy, or my priorities? What warning signs did I miss? The purpose here is clarity. Clarity is power. Step 2, reduce. Return to the smallest possible step. Here is where most people fail. They try to jump back in at the level they left. They try to resume the perfect routine, and that's why they quit again. No. You must reduce. If your habit was 45 minutes, bring it down to 5. If it was 5 tasks, bring it down to 1. If it was complex, make it simple. You don't need to rebuild the whole house. You just need to relight the pilot flame. Return small. Return immediately. Return consistently. Step 3, rebuild a routine. Structure is the skeleton of success. Now we take the small step and give it a home, a time, a place, and a rhythm. Jim Rohn said it perfectly. Routine is the structure that builds the castle of success. Your routine should answer 3 questions. When will I do it? Where will I do it? What is the minimum version on hard days? If you answer these questions, inconsistency becomes remarkably difficult. Without structure, even strong motivation collapses. With structure, even weak motivation survives. Step 4, replace environment. Don't fight your environment, fix it. Most people try to build consistency in an environment designed for distraction. No wonder they fail. Your environment either works for you or works against you. Jim Rohn said, you cannot rise above the 5 people you spend the most time with. I would add, you cannot rise above the environment you live in every day. So ask yourself, what distracts me? What drains me? What tempts me? What influences me? Then make the environment match the habit. Remove friction. Add support. Create a space where your future has room to grow. Step 5, record and measure. What gets measured improves. The simplest form of discipline is tracking. 1 check mark, 1 box, 1 line in a journal. Jim Rohn taught, you can't manage what you don't measure. When you track your habit, even in the smallest way, you create momentum. You create proof. You create accountability to yourself. And over time, you'll notice something beautiful. Your streak doesn't motivate you. The identity behind it does. Step 6, reinforce identity. Tell yourself the truth about who you are becoming. This step is subtle yet incredibly powerful. Every day, speak to yourself the way a leader speaks to a team. I am a person of discipline. I am someone who follows through. I keep promises I make to myself. I return quickly when I fall. Identity drives behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. The cycle becomes unstoppable. Remember this. You don't act your way into identity, you decide your way into it, then confirm it with action. Step 7, recommit. A commitment spoken is weak, a commitment written is strong. Finally, you recommit. Not a dramatic pledge, not a social media announcement, just a quiet, written promise to yourself. Jim Rohn said, "A life worth living is a life worth writing down." Write your commitment. Sign your name under it. Date it. Review it. Because the moment you write it, something changes inside you. The promise becomes real. The return becomes inevitable. The inconsistency loses its power. And now you have the full system. Not a restart, not a new beginning, but a return. And once you master the return, my friends, you master consistency itself. Because the great secret is this: getting back up is the skill that makes all other skills possible. My friends, now that we've walked through the Rohn reset and you know how to return, how to rebuild, how to recommit, let me show you something remarkable. Something that Jim Rohn taught over and over again. Something that separates average lives from extraordinary ones. It's called the compounding effect. And let me tell you, this principle is powerful. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It works quietly in the background while you go about your day. But over time, it changes everything. Jim Rohn used to say, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day." Not practiced for a week. Not practiced only when you feel good. Practiced every day. Because consistency compounds. What does that mean? It means this. Every time you return, every time you get back up, you strengthen a muscle that most people never develop. And that muscle is resilience. That muscle is character. That muscle is discipline. Let me give you the truth most people never hear. Success doesn't come from perfect consistency. It comes from persistent recommitment. Falling doesn't destroy the compounding effect. Staying down does. Let's explore why getting back up matters far more than never falling. 1. A missed day doesn't break the chain of progress. Most people think missing one day ruins everything. Not true. Missing one day is normal. Missing 2 days is dangerous. Missing 3 days becomes a new pattern. What matters most is not the miss. What matters is your response. Every time you return quickly, you keep the compounding effect alive. 2. Small daily disciplines grow into massive results. Think of it like interest in a bank account. You deposit a little every day, just a tiny amount. It doesn't look like much, but over time, the growth becomes exponential. The same is true for your habits. A few pages a day turns into hundreds of books. A few minutes of exercise becomes a stronger body. A few dollars saved becomes financial freedom. A few actions of discipline become a new identity. Consistency compounds across every area of your life. 3. Returning builds inner strength. Let me tell you something important. Perfection builds ego. Recommitment builds strength. When you learn how to return after failure, you become unstoppable, not because you never fail, but because failure no longer controls you. You no longer fear inconsistency because you know how to recover from it. You've taken its power away. Jim Rohn taught, don't ask for a lighter load, ask for a stronger back. Returning is how you build that stronger back. 4. Winning the small battles creates big victories. Every day you return is a small victory. You may not feel it. You may not see immediate results, but your future self will thank you. Imagine this, 365 days of small victories. You think that doesn't change your life? Oh, my friends, it changes everything. Because success isn't one big moment. It's 1,000 small decisions stacked on top of each other, day after day, until the weight of discipline becomes the foundation of your future. 5. The compounding effect turns ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. You don't need talent to be consistent. You don't need genius. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need motivation every day. What you need is the willingness to return again and again. That's what builds character. That's what builds identity. That's what builds leadership. Because leaders are not made in their perfect days. Leaders are made in the days they choose to rise from imperfection. 6. When you return, life begins to align with you. When you show up consistently, when you keep your promises, when you move forward even after you fall, life begins to open doors. Opportunities begin to appear. Momentum begins to build. And people will ask you, how do you stay so disciplined? How do you stay so focused? You'll smile because you know the truth. You don't stay consistent because you never fall. You stay consistent because you always return. That's the compounding effect. Quiet, steady, relentless. And one day you look around and realize that the life you're living was built one small daily victory at a time. And now, my friends, once you understand the compounding effect, the next step becomes crucial. How do we prevent unnecessary falls in the future? Not eliminate them entirely because you're human, but reduce them, anticipate them, rise faster from them. That's where we go next. My friends, now that you understand the compounding effect, how quiet, simple disciplines grow into magnificent results, let's talk about something just as important: how to prevent unnecessary falls. Not all falls, because as long as you and I are human, we will stumble from time to time. But the great leader doesn't eliminate mistakes. He reduces them. He anticipates them. He rises from them faster. And he structures his life so the falls become fewer and fewer. Jim Rohn used to say, stand guard at the door of your mind. That means you must protect your consistency long before the moment you're tempted to break it. Because if you wait until you're tired, stressed, distracted, or overwhelmed to defend your discipline, you're already too late. Prevention is done in advance. Leadership happens before the crisis, not after. So let me give you a few principles, simple, powerful, timeless, to help you prevent future falls and strengthen your consistency like never before. 1. The weekly review. Don't let a week go by unexamined. Most people drift into inconsistency because they never zoom out. They're too busy living the days to understand the weeks. But Jim Rohn taught a life worth living is a life worth reviewing. Once a week, just a few quiet minutes, ask yourself, what worked this week? What slipped? What distracted me? What strengthened me? What needs adjusting? A weekly review is not about perfection, it's about course correction. A 1-degree correction every 7 days keeps you on track for decades. Environmental alignment. Make success easy and failure hard. Let me tell you something. Your environment talks to you every day. It whispers, it influences, it nudges, and most people try to build discipline in an environment designed for distraction. That's like planting roses in a freezer. It's not the flower that's the problem, it's the temperature. So ask yourself, does my environment support my goals? Do the people around me support my growth? Does my home encourage or discourage the habits I want? Do I have more triggers for distraction than triggers for discipline? If so, you don't have a discipline problem, you have an environmental problem. Instead of fighting your environment, fix it. Remove friction, add structure, put the book where you'll pick it up. Put the phone where you won't. Let your surroundings serve your future. 3. Predefined minimum versions. On hard days, do the smallest possible step. The reason many people fall off is because their plan is too big for the days when life gets heavy. They think success requires intensity, but wisdom tells us success requires flexibility. So create a minimum version of every habit. 45 minutes of exercise, 5 minutes of stretching, 10 pages of reading, 1 page, a full journaling session, 3 sentences, a big work block, 1 meaningful action. When life punches you in the chest, the minimum version keeps the rhythm alive. And as long as the rhythm is alive, the compounding effect continues. 4. Habit safeguards. Anticipate the storm before it arrives. Every habit has vulnerable moments. Early mornings, late nights, travel days, busy seasons, emotional lows. So prepare safeguards, pre-made meals, pre-planned workouts, pre-scheduled tasks, backup time slots, tools and reminders already in place. You can't prevent storms, but you can build roofs. 5. Accountability. Even the strongest leaders need someone checking their progress. Jim Rohn said, we all need a little help, sometimes more than a little. Accountability is not weakness. Accountability is wisdom. Find someone who encourages your best, reminds you of your standard, holds you to your promises, expects growth from you, refuses to accept your excuses. Your standards will rise to match the expectations of the people around you. Choose those people carefully. 6, seasonal adjustment. Adapt to life, don't collapse under it. Life has seasons, busy seasons, quiet seasons, joyful seasons, difficult seasons, and many people stay inconsistent because they expect the same level of performance in every season. But consistency doesn't mean doing the same volume, it means maintaining the same commitment. So adjust your intensity when life demands it. High season, streamlined habits. Low season, expanded habits. Stressful season, simplified habits. The commitment stays the same. The expression changes. That is wisdom. 7, the never miss twice rule. Falling is normal. Repeating the fall is a decision. Here is one of the simplest and strongest principles you can adopt. Never miss twice. Miss once, that's life. Miss twice, that's a pattern. If you follow this rule, inconsistency becomes almost impossible. You may fall, but you'll never fall for long. You may miss a day, but you'll never miss your future. You become the kind of person who rises immediately. And that one decision alone can change your whole destiny. My friends, all of these principles come down to one truth. You must protect your consistency before inconsistency arrives. You must build the systems today that will carry you through tomorrow. You must guard your habits the way you guard your dreams, because they are the bridge that makes your dream possible. And now that you know how to prevent unnecessary falls, it's time to bring everything together, because this journey isn't over. We still have one more chapter, a closing thought, a final truth, a reminder that will anchor all the wisdom we've covered. My friends, as we bring this lesson to a close, let me leave you with a simple truth, one that changed my own life, and one I hope will stay with you for many years to come. You don't need a perfect life. You just need a persistent one. Consistency was never meant to be flawless. It was meant to be faithful. Success doesn't require unbroken streaks. It requires unwavering direction. Jim Rohn used to say, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." But becoming better is not a straight line. Becoming better is a continual returning, a returning to your standards, a returning to your values, a returning to your commitments. And yes, a returning even after the moments you wish you could forget. The greatest mistake you can make is believing that a broken day breaks the future. It doesn't. The future belongs to the one who comes back, not the one who never stumbles. Perfection leaves no room for humanity. But persistence honors the journey. Persistence honors growth. Persistence turns small daily actions into a life of extraordinary accomplishment. So let me offer you these final reminders. When you fall, return. When you drift, adjust. When you break the rhythm, restart the next moment, not the next month. When discouragement visits, remind yourself who you're becoming, not what you missed. You see, life doesn't reward perfect intentions, it rewards consistent execution. And consistency is not the act of never falling, it's the habit of rising again and again with a little more wisdom, a little more clarity, and a little more strength each time. My friends, this is the art of self-leadership. It's the daily decision to guide yourself forward even when the path grows dim. It's the courage to come back to your goals when comfort tries to pull you away. It's the wisdom to follow systems instead of feelings, vision instead of fear, and long-term purpose instead of short-term pleasure. And if you learn to return quickly, if you learn to reset wisely, if you learn to rise every time you fall, then success doesn't just happen someday. It begins to follow you. Not because you're lucky, not because you're gifted, but because you've set your sail toward discipline, toward purpose, toward the life you were meant to live. My friends, remember this. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be persistent. Keep leading yourself. Keep showing up. Keep returning to the path. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the very life you dreamed of grew from the days you decided to rise rather than quit. That's the great secret. That's the quiet power. That is the art of consistency. And that is the work of a true leader.